Thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Business of Fun podcast. I am your host, Dave Wakeman. Today's episode is brought to you by my friends at Booking Protect, the global leaders in refund protection, offering you the world's most comprehensive refund protection product. Booking Protect is the #1 rated refund protection product on Trustpilot. They offer world-class customer service and a proprietary digital customer service experience that is unmatched anywhere in the world. To find out how working with Booking Protect can give you and your customers a better buying experience, more peace of mind, and for the organization, a new stream of revenue, visit www.bookingprotect.com. The global leaders in refund protection. Once again, that's www.bookingprotect.com. My guest today is a friend of mine from Seattle, a guy called Kirk Bentley from Wordfly. Wordfly is a email marketing platform that is built specifically for the arts and entertainment industry. And when I met with Kirk while we were at Intix and we hung out and had some laughs and some fun, I decided I wanted to have Kirk on the podcast because I feel that email is one of the most often underutilized and underappreciated tools that we have in our marketing and sales platform. In this episode, we kind of cover a lot of ground about email marketing. We go through this concept of permission marketing that was made famous by a guy called Seth Godin, who I probably have mentioned more than once on the podcast. We talk about the need to make all of your emails and all of the campaigns focus with care and attention and love towards your customers. We talk about the idea that most marketing campaigns and the email marketing campaigns fail because they're not consistent enough, or they don't look good, or they just get lost in the shuffle of people's inboxes. We talk about why email is still important and can still be valuable. And then we did into a lot of heavy how-to stuff. I asked Kurt about how you can start from nothing and grow a list, which was something I was very curious about. We talk about how often, the cadence and frequency of the emails you send, and some of the best practices there. We talked about how to measure the success of your email campaigns. We talked about the types of emails you should be sending to your clients. One of the things that was really I think beneficial, and probably you can't hear often enough, is the need to experiment and measure the campaigns you're undertaking. And this goes beyond email to every campaign you're undertaking. Experiment, test them, measure them, and adjust. I mean, we covered that. We talked about, top of the funnel things, how to manage the sales process, call to action, bounce rates, engaged email subscribers versus unengaged email subscribers. I mean, this is something that anybody who has seen some of the stuff I've talked about for sports teams and email marketing know how much emphasis I put on email marketing. And when I was talking to Kirk and we got going, I was like, we should have one of these conversations on the podcast because I think that people are underestimating the impact of email. Now, we do make an offer at the end of the podcast. I'm going to make it up front as well because I don't want you to miss this. It's really like the Godfather. It's an offer you can't refuse. If you email me and put Wordfly in the subject line, I'm going to give you 30 days of free Wordfly subscription, and I'm going to give you a review of some of the wording and the action of some of the emails you're sending to make sure that they are making the most powerful impact that you can. I mean, that's better than anything else we could do. That's not a sponsored thing. That's just like something I thought about on the spur of the moment. So if you email me, dave@davewakeman.com, we will work to get you set up with a free trial of Wordfly, and I'll take a gander at your emails and the campaign you're doing to make sure it's like focused on the right things. I mean, I feel so strongly about this that I really hope you'll take us up on this. And without further ado, I want to turn it over to my conversation with Kirk Bentley from Wordfly. I want to welcome my friend Kirk Bentley to the Business of Fun podcast. Kirk, what's happening, man?
Hey, Dave. How you doing? Great to be here.
It's good. I think I mentioned. I know I mentioned it on Twitter. I have my special supersonic shorts on today. If we were on video, you would see like the full like Seattle outfit with my Pearl Jam T-shirt, my supersonic shorts, and I had a Mariners hat on earlier. I mean, I'm like full Seattle for gosh. You. I'm like Pacific Northwest all the way.
I love the Seattle pride. That's fantastic. Yeah. I love it.
Well, I was born in Bremerton. Most people don't realize that. So, and they don't realize how close my connection to Seattle is. They just figured I did some work out there and that I'm affectionate in that way. But no, I'm like a born Washingtonian. So that's.
I mean, I grew up in Seattle, and if you had told me when I was a kid that there would be a million amazing brands and bands and record labels and performers and all this stuff that came out of this town, I never would have believed you.
Yeah, no, it long ago lost the idea of a sleepy town in some backwater.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I love the place. I mean, it is like one of the places I really, really love in the world. It's Seattle and the whole area.
One of the things we're really big at here at Wordfly is kind of this concept of made in Seattle, and just how there's a lot of just kind of funny, quirky things about this town that really generate a lot of creativity and authenticity, and there's a really neat community of just like makers and builders and artists that it's part of the heart and soul of this town. So it's pretty cool thing.
Yeah, no, I'll have to get myself a Made in Seattle T-shirt if that's a thing. And what was interesting when I met you at Intix was if you hadn't told me you were from Seattle and that you knew these things about me, I would not have known, because I know that the Seattle freeze is real.
It sure has been this week. I got a foot of snow at my house, but yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of questions about the Seattle freeze, and the number one question I have is, everyone talks about how nobody's from Seattle, like everyone moves here, and I'm like, well, then how can the freeze be
a real
Seattle
thing? Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's be like a Minnesota or a New York or an Indianapolis or wherever the heck you're from thing.
Yeah, there was also when I lived there was the Bellevue Bob. It was like all the Bobs. Everybody had the same Bob haircut. But
the Bellevue Bob, yeah.
Yeah, but this is for a different podcast. This will be like our Seattle podcast.
That's right, yeah.
I want to thank you for coming on today and because I wanted to talk about what Wordfly's up to and what you're working on, because I think that you guys are doing something that I think is really, really interesting for like the arts and entertainment world. And it revolves around this antiquated technology called email. Which I joke about, and I said, like you were saying before, it's like, it's almost 50, right? Which is like getting up there towards where we are, or we're getting up there towards where it is, whatever it is. But the thing I want to impress upon people, and I think you guys do a really great job of it, is why is email still like the most effective tool to get to drive revenue for an organization and help build connections and relationships with people, patrons of the arts and people who are interested in seeing your shows?
Yeah, I mean, email has just got such a funny reputation. And when I started in this business, doing email marketing for arts and entertainment, it was about 13 years ago. And when I would tell people, what my role was, and I'm working with this innovative new technology company, they'd call me a spammer. They'd be like, oh, well, email is spam. You somehow get people signed up on these lists, and then you spam them. And I was like, no, that's not at all how it works. And it's been really interesting, especially in the last couple of years. You probably have noticed that email's reputation has really started to change, because a lot of startups and technology companies that are around today have figured out, okay, this is really, really effective, and they've sunk a lot of resources into it. And there's some amazing work being done with this channel. So, I think, why is it so effective? I think that there is something personal and special about each of our inboxes. That inbox is yours, as opposed to something like Facebook and Twitter. When you're on one of those platforms, you're in there with a bunch of other people, and there's all kinds of talking going back and forth, and there's commenting, and everyone's sharing their stuff. But when you're in your inbox that has your name on it, that's your private space. So we feel like there's something very personal about that space, and to do email right, you have to know that right up front. and you have to respect that space. It's like going into someone's home. If they want you to take your shoes off, then you need to take your shoes off. You need to abide by their rules.
Well,
I think.
let me ask you this, because
Yeah.
when you were explaining this too, it brought me back to a concept. It's I think the book's 20 years old now, but it holds up extremely well, which is permission marketing. Permission marketing was a term that Seth Godin created, and it talked about creating an asset that people give you permission to market to them, and that's what email is. Unless I'm completely clueless, which is debatable most days. But to me, that's what makes email so effective, is the idea that people are giving you permission to talk to them. So like when they talk about it being spam, no, it's not. If people have given you the permission to communicate with them. And I think one of the challenges, maybe if you think about it as spam, or you think about it as not new sexy technology, is that you take the permission people have given you and you make it you don't give it the attention that it deserves. And so you're squandering the permission. Or maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, Seth Godin's one of my heroes, and he really was, one of the first guy to really kind of develop this idea. And I think he's right on the money, and still is all these years later with this idea. What a precious thing that is, to have somebody out there raise their hand and say, hey, I'm going to give you my basically key to my inbox. I'm going to raise my hand and say, I want to hear from you. That's a really precious thing, and that's something special. And unfortunately, what happens is that unfortunately a lot of brands get lazy and complacent and don't treat that transaction and that agreement with the respect that it deserves. And that's why I think on the receiving end, people get frustrated with emails, and email marketing, because they raised their hand. They said, I want to hear from you. And then they start getting, emails that don't look great, that don't have value, that don't communicate clearly, what they're all about, or make people feel special, or like they're on the inside track. And so I think those are opportunities for brands to really get in there and do those kinds of things. And unfortunately, still, and this is one of the problems in the world that we're trying to fix with Wordfly, is to help people really maximize that opportunity, to value that, what you say, that asset.
Yeah, it comes across like, and this is how all too much email marketing comes across. And this is like when you talked about email, I perked up because I was like, I saw the value of this stuff right away. But when you go back to like people kind of not treating the email with respect, to me it's like, don't neglect me, right? Show me some value when you communicate with me in my inbox, and be consistent, right? Don't just come and ask. Don't come popping into my email in my inbox when you need something or you want me to buy something.
Yeah,
I mean those are three big challenges, right? And I think if you aren't conscious of creating email campaigns that are relevant, that are add value and are respectful of the relationship between you and your customer, you get a lot of bad email campaigns. Is I guess what happens, and that makes it more inefficient, and then it becomes spam. Or am I off base again?
No, I think you're on track here, and when people think of spam, there's actual spam, where someone has somehow gotten your email address and trying to get you to whatever, give them your bank account details. But there's another kind that's maybe more pervasive, which is just it's just email that doesn't have a lot of care and attention and I guess love basically put into it, really. And those are the things that, that's kind of like the number one thing why people unsubscribe, is that the emails, either aren't designed well and they seem irrelevant.
It's funny that you say that too, care and attention and love. And then the email doesn't, it all reflect that, because that was a problem I had this year. And I don't want to give context because I don't want to put It was a volunteer thing. It was a pro bono thing I did, and everybody involved was doing the work pro bono. But that was like sort of the conversation I was having when we were talking about the effectiveness of some of the things we were doing. I was like, well, you can't just expect people, right? You have to show them. You have to show them that you care about them, right, and that you respect their attention, and most importantly, that's community, and like the communities revolve around, like, for lack of a better term, love. So I really dig
Yeah.
that. And it's very
I think
important.
it's true.
Love doesn't get enough. It doesn't get, love and empathy don't get enough attention in most business anymore. But especially when you're talking about the arts, it's almost the foundation of what is going on, I think.
I agreed. And, one of the things I try to educate, our clients about is just kind of like opening up my inbox and showing them, all the other emails that they're competing with in there, and if you look at companies like Apple and Netflix, and Google, and even some of the major retailers, and they're hiring marketing teams that love marketing those brands, and they really do put love and energy and excitement into those email campaigns. And if you're not doing that same thing at your arts venue or your entertainment venue or your museum, you're not competing in the inbox. And as people click through each email, they're seeing all these amazing, beautifully branded, engaging emails, and then they get to yours. And what does yours look like? And so I think that's a real eye opener for a lot of folks, is that, wow, we've really got to step this up. We really need to focus on this, especially, a lot of people don't know this, but email is still the number one revenue generator for venues and arts and entertainment organizations. So, it's important that people, I think, internally really take that to heart and make it a major part, of their brand outreach and how they're marketing to people and how they're talking to people.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because you did talk about, you see all these other brands, right? Like, Apple sends out some beautiful emails, or, some of the clothing brands, and you said grocery stores and stuff. They all send out these really great emails, and then you have to show them side by side. What do you think, or maybe you have like some suggestions that you've helped people with in the past, as far as like making sure that they're more aware of what their own emails say, and like how there's a dissonance between what they think of as themselves, and they're building their, the organization that they're, working for, to communicate with, to help them kind of clarify their thinking about this, so they go so it's not such a shock when you go, hey, look at this email that came from Apple. Now compare it to yours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I generally, when I'll consult with folks, usually, the first thing that we do is kind of talk about kind of three major ideas, or not necessarily rules, but three ways to kind of start off, at least heading in the right direction towards success on this. And I think the very first thing is prioritizing email. And if you look at if you're at your venue and you're able to do it, the first thing to do is just like look at the data, because you can't make a case to prioritize email marketing at your organization until you can look at the conversions and the data and the revenue that's coming in from those emails. So look at that data, and I think you'll see pretty clearly that it's either number one or number two at your organization. So, you'll be able to see and be able to show leaders at your venue, hey, this is important. We need to focus on this. We can optimize this. We can make more from this. We can do more with this. So I think prioritizing it and getting a team behind it. My clients in Australia are amazing at this. I don't know why they're so good at it, but I just want to give a shout out to all those guys down there. They do this so well. They just really put the care and attention and assemble an amazing team around just email marketing. It's pretty remarkable. I think the second thing you need to do is bring that marketing team and the technology team together, because email is art and science. It's design, but it's also technology. And to do it right, you need to get both of those teams in the room together, because if you're going to do personalization, if you're going to do dynamic content, if you're going to want that data, and you will want it to do this, to flow back and forth between your CRM and your email tools, you're going to need your tech team in the room. So get marketing and tech to talk about, marketing can maybe drive that about, okay, here's what we wanted to do. How do we do that tactically, from a technology perspective? And then thirdly, and this is something that I think is really important, is to really think of your email campaigns as an experiment that you're measuring. So Netflix does this wonderfully. There's several stories and blog posts about how Netflix does their email marketing, but they generally think of their emails as experiments, like a lot of people do, and they measure them. They A/B test everything. They try different things. They create a hypothesis and test it. So you're in a constant state of testing, experimenting, and measuring. So those three things: getting a team, uniting technology and marketing, and then I think approaching it from a very kind of experimental, test your hypothesis and measure perspective. That's a really great way to kind of just set things up, and then of course there's a whole nother layer of like, well, how are we going to execute on all that stuff? But that's a good way to kind of point your whole organization in the right direction for this.
Yeah, and it sounds like to me, right, and you tell me if I've got this right, is really the biggest key for a lot of times for arts and entertainment organizations to understand the power of email marketing, or to see something that somebody else is doing and not be overwhelmed by it, but being like, well, I can actually use this and do this on my own, is just the awareness, right? And understanding that like the tools and technologies that are available to them to create these interactive and very contextual ads is more available to people than ever before. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, I mean, and it can look this, all this stuff can be pretty intimidating.
Yeah, and let me go in and let me add this too before you answer, is because one of the things I learned from being at N6 is that I think sometimes people get overwhelmed by change, and it's tough to prioritize what to do first, or you think that sometimes you just get trapped into thinking like, there's got to be billions and millions of dollars behind these things, and I want to reinforce the idea that there's so many tools and so many things that you can do so easily now, that and I really want to emphasize that. So I'm sorry to cut you off on that.
Yeah, no, not at all. And yeah, I mean, let me just kind of pick up on that note. I mean, look, change is hard, right? No matter what you're doing in life, whether you're at a business or doing, trying to lose weight or exercise more, whatever, it's hard to change habits. And oftentimes we just have, bad organizational habits. And lots of times it's, legacy stuff left over from, people that were there before. And so, I recognize that those are, these are difficult things to do, and to kind of reimagine what you could do. And that's why I think it's, it is first of all important to really look at the data, and look at, how many people do you have on your list? What kind of, the quality of those email addresses, the quality of those interactions, the revenue that's coming in from these email campaigns you're sending out. And I think, when it comes to, changing your ways, a big part of that is, I think, having the right team behind you. And again, Wordfly is really focused on this arts and entertainment niche. That's really the only groups that we work with. Unlike some of these other, the market leaders, frankly, in the email space, the MailChimps or Constant Contacts or Campaign Monitors, that's a very tumultuous market. And they're not necessarily focused on any niche. There's a lot of consolidation. There's a lot of M&A going on right now in that market. And so one of the things that we really try to champion with our customers is that this is a tool just for them, and we are here just for them. It's all about arts and marketing and selling tickets and engaging with customers engaging with visitors, getting people to your attraction, and really boosting that whole experience. And I think folks really respond when they come on board, because that sounds great in a demo and a sales pitch, right? But when folks come on board and they realize, wow, there's an entire team here that knows all about our challenges as a business and as a venue, and they also know all about digital marketing and surveys and email and RSVPs for events, that really makes making the change a lot easier, because we're able to help you drive that. So I think getting some support behind you is pretty helpful, and I think the first thing you have to do is be able to show, hey, wow, we've got this email program in place. It's kind of meh. It's kind of underperforming, and if people need to know what a really great program looks like, we can talk about that, because I think it's important that people understand, what success really looks like for email.
Yeah, let me jump in there too, because you bring up a good point, right? Which is like, if your email campaigns now aren't really well thought out or prioritized or planned very well, they're for lack of a better term, kind of low impact, right? How much of a difference can having a targeted, focused, really high impact email campaign make? From conversion rates or, any of the best measures of success?
It's night and day. Yeah, I mean, it can make a really, really big difference. There's one story I love, which is we've got I won't name names, but we've got a venue that's in Australia, and what they started doing was they started noticing that a lot of folks were putting tickets, in the basket and basically just kind of leaving them there, right? And so they decided, okay, well, let's try to just engage on that and see what we can do. And they started doing an abandoned cart program. They call it the basket down there. So they started doing an abandoned basket, program down there, and sending out an email to anyone who had put a ticket in the basket. And almost overnight, we're talking these emails were generating thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of revenue just left on the table. I mean, I think each month they started just pulling in $50,000 to $60,000 of revenue that's just left sitting on the table. Revenue that just would have been lost, most likely.
$50,000 or $60,000 soon. You're talking real money.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's not nothing, and
it adds up fast. If you're most arts organizations.
And depending on the type of venue you are, that could be a lot of money. And I'll tell you, for this venue, that was a lot of money. That was a really important discovery. And so then, I think once you have a success like that usually, people look up from their cup of coffee when they see that kind of stuff happening. It's like, hey, wow, what's going on there? That's moving the needle for real. So
that's a great point, because I think too, anybody who's questioning what to do or how to create change, it's find and look at something that you can get an immediate win off of. When I'm doing anything, consulting about revenue with organizations, I look for things to get quick wins, because like you said, change is hard. And people haven't always prioritized the right things, because maybe there's bad habits that build up over time. There's an inertia, and those when you said a $50,000 or $60,000 quick win, I mean that would have my attention. I can only speak for myself.
You bet. I mean, yeah. So I love it. Yeah, a quick win like that. I mean, that's huge, and I think. There's a lot of fear around email too, because like you say, you and Seth Godin say, it is an asset. That email list of 100,000, 250,000 people you have, that's an asset. But you got to look at really how it's performing. Are all 250,000 of those people actually engaged with you? And a lot of times the first thing you need to do when, you come on board with a new email system is kind of trim that down, and really look at, okay, who's really engaged here, and that can be a scary thing, especially at the executive level, or if you've got a board, the board never likes to see email addresses disappear. But I think, it's important that's a big part of the change, is saying, okay, we're really going to focus on the people who are interested in hearing from us, or at least first, before we chop these people, we're going to ask if people still want to hear from us.
Oh yeah, that's like the GDPR stuff in the UK. Like you confirm that people still want to hear from you.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's powerful.
I think
and size doesn't matter.
I think not to be the bearer of scary news, but I think all of us need to prepare ourselves that GDPR USA is coming. That's going to happen here. Several states are already starting to do it on the state level, and so I think we need to start thinking about, okay, how are we going to protect this data, respect the privacy of people, and still engage with them in a way that makes sense for business.
Yeah, and I think that people shouldn't be afraid of it, right? Because what I've learned is that it really just makes you be a more conscientious marketer. And I think that's a great thing, because that's the big key when we're talking about using email in the arts, is that if you have 10,000 people and half of them don't care, you're better off only talking to the 5,000 people that care anyway. Like the 10,000 doesn't matter. It's irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly. And, again, that can be scary, and I think, some folks will make the case, well, they may not be opening or clicking, and they may not have done that for a year, but who knows, that maybe they just haven't seen anything that interesting, and well, I think in that case, you should really reach out and ask them, if they still want to be on the list. But I mean, if people are looking for quick wins, I mean, right off the bat, start sending a welcome email. Within 24 hours after someone signs up, send a welcome email. Generally, when people sign up for an email program, that first 24 to 48 hours, that's when they're ready to make a purchase or engage with you in some other way. So, that welcome email is critical. Abandoned cart, like I mentioned, if you're looking for a quick win, you'll definitely start seeing some results from that. And I think, doing the, if you're a venue, sending reminder emails about an upcoming performance or an event that someone's going to, and then doing follow-ups, sending a triggered follow-up, after someone visits the venue or visits your site, send a follow-up and put a survey in there and collect as much data as you can, and really show folks that you're engaging with them, that email back and forth and those reminder emails, that's their guide right into your venue, so that's got to be kind of like, virtual concierge, welcoming them, to the venue and to the site, and I think showing them what your brand's all about. So those are three things that we usually like to recommend just right off the bat, get a little bit of automation going and just kind of schedule some emails.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you about that too, because I'm sure that one of the things I'm trying to do a little bit more of with the podcast is I want to help people see the how-to behind some things. So let me ask you this. Do you guys have a sort of like a quick start guide or like some suggestions for maybe an organization that either has a stagnant list or doesn't really have a list on how to like start their list and get it going and grow the thing?
Yeah. So yeah, we definitely, that's something that we talk to folks a lot about when they come on board is just, how are they acquiring email lists? How does that work? And some of the big things you've got to think about these days, I think, are, what's that top of the funnel, basically, so to speak, of how do people get on your list? How do they find out about it? How do they know why they would even want to be on this list? So I think making that abundantly clear on all of your digital channels, whether it's social, your website, even at the venue, if you're selling tickets from a box office, can you collect email address there? But I think you need to have a strategy around what the value prop is that your team is telling people why they should be part of the Insiders Club, for example. What's the value there? And that needs to be kind of a sales and marketing message that I think everyone at the organization is able to quickly pitch to somebody, and why it's valuable. So I think there's that element, just the very top of the funnel, getting the word out everywhere you can. We see this all over, all kinds of ingenious places. If it's a digital billboard, there's ways you can advertise it there. If you really want to rev up your list, you can throw a contest. There's any number of different ways to kind of build your list. You got to be careful with those things because sometimes you're just adding garbage to your list. But I think really it comes down to that value prop of why would someone want to be on this, and then getting that message out there clearly. So that's kind of a marketing challenge there. And then I think once you kind of set that up, you need to do routine maintenance on that list. And, hopefully, you're able to see that data in your email provider. In Wordfly, you can see all kinds of engagement reports, who's clicking, who's opening, who hasn't opened for months, who haven't opened for years. You can pull all that data and be able to see exactly who's the most engaged and who's the least engaged. We give people like a star ranking, so if I look up, Kirk Bentley, and I look him up in the account, I can see, wow, this guy's a 4-star, highly engaged subscriber. He's opening, he's clicking, he's forwarding to his friends, he's doing all this stuff that we want him to do, and makes him a real valuable asset to us. Right. So obviously he stays, but if we look up some other guy, he opened once or signed up and never opened. It's probably time to say goodbye to that person because you're throwing money at that, right? You're spending money on sending those emails out, and there's no reason to be sending emails to people that just aren't engaged. So I think doing that audit, that's kind of a big second step. And again, that can be a little scary, but usually once you do that audit,
well, think about it like this too. Like it's not just an audit, but it's also an opportunity if they're really, really engaged, for you to engage them even further. And if they're not engaged, it's also an opportunity to engage them because you can ask questions, right? It's not like just, did you sign up for my email and you don't want to hear from me anymore? You can ask them, why don't they want to hear from you? You can discover all these really interesting things about it. And it gives you a chance, all this data is helpful in creating a better, better buying experience and a better customer experience.
Oh, it's incredible. And I think that's what, dawns on a lot of marketers when they start looking at, something, like when they look at Wordfly, for example, a system that's really designed just for this market and integrated with the other tools they use. And they really see, wow, okay, wait a minute. I'm going to be able to, look up John Doe and know when he opened, what he opened, how many times he clicked, when he clicked, if he made a purchase after that click, if he's on social, all these other things. It really completes the kind of way that you look at your customers. You're able to see a much more well-rounded perspective of who your customers are and what they're doing, whether it's online or with email or social or making purchases on your website. So all that stuff's critical. And then of course you add surveys into that. And we've got a neat tool that also lets you do, RSVPs. So, for your real special VIPs, if they've bought a ticket to, let's say, a performance at the ballet, a lot of those folks would love to be able to come to maybe an educational show, before the show, or a backstage tour before the show. And that's something that you can send in an email and offer them a very special opportunity to engage with your venue in a whole different way. And so for your VIPs, the 5-star members, who wouldn't love that? Hey, do you want to come to this free backstage tour before the ballet this weekend? Yeah. So that kind of stuff. Yeah, right. And what does that do? That just creates an incredible bond between your customer and your venue. It's something really, really special.
Well, let's not skip past the revenue part of this too, because so it creates a bond, right? So that generates a higher lifetime value for your customer, right? But it also creates an environment where they're going to tell everybody, right? So you're going to give those people a chance to spread word of mouth marketing for you, which is like some of the best marketing you have going for you. It's going to be like they're probably going to pump your email list, so you'll have a chance to grow your email list from people who want to hear from you. You're probably going to get them to spend more money that night too, because they're going to be like ecstatic about the whole thing. I mean, there's all these positive things that happen that I don't want people to miss in the idea of like, well, we can throw a backstage party, because there's unintended consequences that are totally positive that you should be aware of.
Oh yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, you need to sell all your tickets. You need to get people in the venue, depending on the kind of, venue you are, you need to get people to sign up for classes or, whatever it is. But I mean, yeah, look, no doubt. I mean, email works and people still use it because it generates revenue, and lots of it if done properly. So yeah, I mean, I don't think you want to lose sight of that part of it, and that should be part of what you're measuring. And if it's falling short of what you want, you need to pour a little fuel on that and gas it up a little bit.
And let me ask you about because you brought up a couple of different measures of success. So we talked about revenue, we talked about the open rates, and the 5-star or 1-star ratings. Are there any other specific measures of success people should be looking at?
Yeah. Well, so let me just dispel
I know everybody's a little bit
of a. Yeah. Well, everybody is. Yeah. So I think, and let me just kick that off with, that's a great question. So everyone should be, if you're just sending out email and just sending it out there and not looking at the results, you're not doing it right. There's lots of data that you can get from this stuff. But I think one thing you need to know is that, open rates are a little bit of a myth these days, because both Yahoo and Gmail, the way that all these inboxes basically track opens is there's a little hidden pixel in the email. And when the server is called to download that little pixel, that counts as an open. Okay. So what a lot of these big, ISPs are doing now, Gmail and Yahoo, is that they host all those images that you send in your email locally. And so it doesn't really need to download it. And so anything basically can register as open now without being opened. So it's good to know that. Open rate is a bit of a novelty metric. It's good to keep tabs on it because you want it to remain fairly consistent. But don't worry too much about it. The thing that really matters is clicks, and more so even than that is conversions, right? So you need to be able to, have a system that's able to track the click and the conversion and the revenue that's associated to each email. So I think those are the big ones. I also, because I'm an email nerd, there's a few other things that I like to look at, which is just making sure that I'm keeping bounces below a certain threshold. So if I'm sending out email and all of a sudden I'm noticing some a lot of hard bounces or a lot of soft bounces for a particular campaign, or I notice those bounces over time are creeping up. For those that don't know, a bounce just means that's an undelivered email, and there's lots of reasons why an email wouldn't get delivered. Some are okay, like an out of office. Some are not okay, like you've been flagged as spam, right? So you want to keep tabs on those too, because that's really kind of a health measurement, for your campaign as a whole. So those are a few things I like to look at, and then of course unsubscribes. You don't want people unsubscribing. But I think it's good to keep your eye on that too, because if that keeps creeping up, it probably means you've got an issue with relevance. So it's good to be looking at, okay, are we staying relevant? And I think it's good to ask people, send out emails periodically, even quarterly, to say, hey, here's what you're signed up for. These are the preferences that you signed up for. Do you still want to be on these preferences? Send a survey. Are you getting value from this email? And I think it's important to ask people. People like that.
Yeah, I found that people do want to feel more engaged in the process. Like you're listening. Even if you're not listening, they want you to listen. But that's
true.
And yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, and I was just going to say, and on that note, just talking about preferences.
I thought you were going to talk about listening.
No, just a quick. What?
Yeah, exactly.
But just a quick tip on preferences. Try. I know it's tempting to micromanage the preferences and throw like 10 or 15 different preference options on the sign up form, but try to steer clear of that. Most people, no one can remember what they really signed up for after they click a few preferences and hit sign up. So try to keep it simple. Give people 3 or 4 kind of big broad categories that they can sign up. Because it's just frustrating, for folks if they, are feeling like they're not interested in what you're saying anymore, or just want to get off of a certain preference. It's hard to figure out, what you signed up for, and frustrating if you can't. And then people just unsubscribe from everything, and you lose them altogether. So keep that initial sign up form pretty simple. And you can always come back later and try to get some of that data later on, offer an incentive, offer 10% if they, fill out the rest of their account information or something. So, try to keep it simple and quick and get the information that you need right now, but don't go too crazy, because people will bail out of that process too.
I was going to say that's a really good point. And, the way I try to, a lot of this stuff that's, because most of the stuff I'm doing is focused on money anyway. But it's like I always want people to kind of think through the process of how would I feel if the shoe was on the other foot, if it was happening to me. So like if you were signing up for an email list and you had to check 15 different boxes to get signed up for the list, you'd be like, screw this, it's too much trouble, I'm out, right? And think about it like that. Like it might be important to you, but it's important to the person you're trying to get to sign up to the list. Because
I signed up for a list just this morning on the bus ride into work, and there was so I'm an email nerd, so I do this sort of thing, but I like to sign up for different programs, so I can see what they're like. And this particular one, it had like 12 different preferences, all just like barely discernible. And at the bottom, it said, click here to sign up for all. And so, because I had no context for what each of those preferences was, I just said, okay, forget it. I'm going to click all, and I know I'm probably going to get like 10 emails a day. But let's see, and since I'm, professionally curious, I did it. But I don't know if a regular person would have done that. They might have just bailed out, because they're not showing you, on that sign up page, like an example of what the email looks like, what you're going to get. Like we talked about that value prop, the top of the funnel. Why would I sign up for this? What is in it for me? Why am I going to give you basically my most valuable digital currency, which is my email address? Why am I going to give that to you?
Right.
What are you going to give back to me? So we've got to make sure that trade,
it's got to be
more
weighted
than fair.
Towards the customer, right? Because
exactly, it's going to be more than fair.
The value has to be way, way more overwhelming to them to be willing to commit to give you the access to the permission to talk to them.
Yeah, look, the novelty of signing up for something is over. So you've really got to show that this is going to be something special, that you're going to get, either deep discounts out of it, or backstage info, or access to early tickets, whatever it is that you can think of that really makes your program valuable. There's got to be something really in it for the customer these days.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Now, I have one more like kind of how-to question, which kind of builds off of all this other stuff we talked to, and that's the cadence and the frequency. Because you said, I'm probably going to get 10 different emails from these things, and it's going to drive me nuts. What's the kind of a best practice on cadence and frequency? Speaking from my own experience, I do an email newsletter each Sunday that comes out once a week, right? But it's always there, and if it doesn't come out, I have people emailing me saying, "Where's the thing?" Right? It's like, are you in a ditch somewhere? Because I'm so consistent.
I love that. You have the best problem in the world. When
that's exactly right.
Say, hey, I didn't get your email, and I'm upset about it. That's like the best problem, right?
Well, I've worked really hard at it, and I know it's like I've created an asset that people expect, right? And it's very personal, and it's always focused on value and strategy. So people really have come to expect this thing. But that's a question I always have. Like what's the right cadence for like an email, or the frequency of sending stuff out, to get responses? Because I know that, again, depending on who you are, what you've designed your email for, what's your market, that's going to vary.
Yeah. And, and of course, like all good things in life, the answer to this question is it depends. So I think, with you, right, like your example, that's amazing, right? So you send it out once a week. People have come to expect that on Sundays. It's just like, you've set up that expectation. That's beautiful. That's exactly how it should be done. I know of another ad agency out there that they send their monthly newsletter on the full moon. Right. So I love that idea, right? Just kind of like creates this expectation. If by chance you looked up at the full moon one day and you'd be like, oh, wow, yeah, probably got that email today. So, I think figuring out for your organization, again, like that's something that you need to test and experiment with, test a little bit with. You need to survey people. You can ask people how often they want to hear from you when they sign up. We see that a lot. I think you can also set the expectation ahead of time and say, when people sign up, you will receive an email about this topic once a month, twice a month, once a week. I think it's good to set that cadence up front. Don't leave it up to guess, to chance when you get around to doing it. I think your team need to set the cadence of, this is when this is published. I'm telling you when this is published. If you want to sign up for this, this is when you'll receive it. So make it something that it's like you explained with your program, that's expected. It comes out on this day at this time every week, every month. So having said that, and I know that's, maybe not, I know people want like an answer like send 3 emails a week or send, that's difficult to say, right? Because every organization is different. And from each organization, you may have several different departments. We generally work with a lot of arts organizations in the U.S. have, a development group. They have an education group. They have the venue or maybe multiple venues that are all sending emails at the same time. So, one giant all-up venue, they might be emailing dozens and dozens of emails a week. So, but I do think it's important that you try to set that cadence internally and communicate that to people. And then lastly, I will say this. I think
lastly, add value at every touch.
Add value at every touch.
I couldn't let you said lastly. I was like, I had to jump in. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I think, just broadly speaking, I think organizations tend to send too little email. And I know that probably sounds crazy, but I think there's fear about, basically ticking people off and then they'll unsubscribe. We just don't see that. That just doesn't really happen that much. So, usually the reason people unsubscribe is because the emails are irrelevant or poorly designed. They don't look good. They don't land well in the inbox. One of the reasons for unsubscribing isn't I'm getting too many emails generally. It's on the list, but it's way down low. So I think, organizations can probably start high. Start higher than you think you should. If you're sending once a week, try twice, try 3 times a week, see what people think, and then ask people. Again, experiment and see what people think. And I think if you're adding value at every turn, like you say, people are going to want those emails.
Yeah, and I think the way you put that is very important because it's a marketing and advertising problem too. It's like you get tired of your message before your audience does because you hear it all day long every day, and your audience is not necessarily hearing it with nearly as much frequency as you are. And it's important to remember that because it may just be starting to get traction and work when you get tired of it. But your customers are just starting to get like, oh yeah, this is great. I'm going to do this. I'm totally signing up for this.
Oh, you are just so right on with that. It's like Ogilvy says, it's like, set your brand and just never change it. You're going to get sick of it, but just keep going. Never change your logo, never do anything. Just keep going, keep going at it because it takes a long time for people to get the message. When I look in my inbox, and we look at major, let's say retail brands, J. Crew and The Gap, and Banana Republic, generally they email me about 4 times a day. 4 times a day. So that's like what you're competing against. If you're trying to get eyeballs in the inbox, just imagine the volume of other stuff that's in my inbox that you're trying to send me. You're going to be okay if you send, twice as much as you think you should.
Yeah, no, I think it's great, and and I think I mean, I really want to encourage everybody to like rethink the way that they're using email. That's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, and I know that if anybody is kirk.bentley@wordfly.com, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
If anybody
Yep.
emails you, now here's this podcast, we'll give them a 30-day free trial. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And on top of that, they can email me, dave@davewakeman.com. And we can make sure, like, I'll take a look at your campaign and give you feedback on whether or not, some of the key touch points or call to actions in there to make sure that, like, you guys maximize it. Because I think it's, like, really, really powerful. I think it'll really create a positive impact on the revenue of your business. Because in the follow-up Kirk's point about Australia, we could steal a lot of stuff from the Australians because they do some fantastic stuff with engagement and email marketing and selling. And I think it's partly because they have to, because it's such a competitive market in Australia.
Yeah, they do a great job. And yeah, just on your point, shoot me an email. We'll get you set up with an account. We'd love to hear about, the type of emails you're sending now, the challenges and the goals that you have for 2019. So that's all a part of what we talk about.
The offer was completely unplanned too. Kurt went right with it. But
but sounds great. Yeah, let's do it.
But how can people, besides your email, how can people find you?
Well, of course, you can just go to wordfly.com. You can also check us out on Twitter at @wordfly. You can find us on Facebook as well. So we're out there, all the normal places. But yeah, probably the best place is wordfly.com, or shoot me an email at kirk.bentley@wordfly.com. But I will say, just it's really true. A lot of people, like I opened up our session with this, a lot of people just have this funny attitude, and it's sort of like the redheaded stepchild of the digital marketing scene. However, when you really drill down and talk to these giant venues, it just generates so much engagement and revenue that it really isn't something that you should ignore. And I think what we're trying to do specifically for, the arts and entertainment world is really make a product and create this tool that really helps you be successful at this. And we've got a fantastic team. This is all we do day in and day out, is help arts and entertainment organizations do this. So yeah, let us know if you need help with this. Definitely happy to consult with you and just chat about it.
Yeah, to me, email and doing it well is one of the most powerful marketing and selling tools that we have access to. And for so many arts organizations, and a lot of people listening to this, the success of your marketing and email campaign can be the difference between scraping by and creating a sense of sustainability and stability for your organization. And I mean that in complete seriousness. And I think really it's a wise decision to pay attention to the kind of emails you're sending, how to do it, what to do. And I think that, there's a lot of great tools out there. Wordfly is a fantastic tool, and one that's built specifically for the arts and entertainment. And, if we're giving you 30 free days and like a free, 15 or 20 minute consultation about your email, I mean, what do you got to lose?
Right.
All right.
We're giving it away.
Yeah, exactly. We're giving it away. Kirk, man, thank you for doing this with me.
Absolutely. Hey, real pleasure being here. Thanks. It's always fun to geek out a little bit on email marketing. So thanks for having me.
Who knew I was going to be a geek on email?
Hey, everyone's a nerd about something, right?
I'm a nerd about money. Hey, thanks again, man.
You bet.
Once again, I want to thank my guest, Kirk Bentley from Wordfly, for taking the time to talk to us about email marketing. Like I said, and like you just heard from me and Kirk, email one of us, put Wordfly in the subject line, and we'll set you up with a free trial of Wordfly and a review of your campaign from me. It's a great offer. It's something that I just feel so incredibly powerful and so I have such a strong preference for doing this stuff well that I want to see you all be successful at it. I believe that it helps with the sustainability of your organization, and it helps, drive revenue. I mean, with a brand name like the Revenue Architect, if I wasn't talking about driving revenue, you should probably tune me out. But I mean, I really think this is like super, super powerful stuff. As always, you can find out what I'm up to by visiting my website, which is www.davewakeman.com. You can find my blog there, which gets updated daily. A lot of short blogs with maybe some quick ideas about marketing or selling more effectively, sometimes a little bit longer pieces. You can follow me on Twitter. That's at davidwakeman.com. If anybody knows the person who has at Dave Wakeman, hook them up, tell them, give it to me. I need it. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you. Love to connect. If you have any ideas, questions, thoughts about the podcast, suggestions for topics or guests, please email me. It's my name, Dave, at davewakeman.com. As always, if you like what I'm doing with the podcast, I really need your help, right? Share this thing with your colleagues, your friends, your coworkers. Go to iTunes, go to Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcast, wherever you find the podcast. Subscribe and review. All of this stuff helps. It helps move me up the rankings. It helps make sure I can continue to deliver really great content for you and have conversations like I just did with Kirk Bentley, or the one I did earlier in the week with Carolyn Gibbs, the ones I've done with Martin Gameltoff, Kat Spencer, all these people, all these great conversations. It really, and it means the world to me. It means the world to me that you all spend so much time listening to the podcast, engaging with me, and being there. Until then, I want to thank my sponsor, which is Booking Protect, the global leaders in refund protection, the #1 rated refund protection product on Trustpilot, and the most comprehensive refund protection product anywhere in the world. Any listing, any sector, anywhere, Booking Protect has you covered. Visit them at www.bookingprotect.com and find out how working with Booking Protect can give you a better buying experience for your customers, more peace of mind, which will help them make purchasing decisions earlier, and how you can create a new stream of revenue for your organization. Again, that's www.bookingprotect.com. And again, until next time, thank you for listening. Take it easy.